Hello and welcome back to Free Project Collaboration Tools That Rock. You are watching Module 2 presented by Andrew Makar, and in Module 2 we will be reviewing the tools. But just to be on the safe side, here is once again the overview of the modules in this webinar. You have already watched Module 1, where Andy introduced you to the collaboration challenges, and we discussed, well, what's wrong with today's way of collaborating. Now we are entering the tools in just a second, and then in Module 3 we'll look at the caveats and how to get started.
And this brings us to Module 2, where we'll look at some of the different collaboration solutions. So in tonight's talk, we're going to look at 3 different tools, actually 4. One is Mindjet Connect, and their new tool, which is Connect Action. We'll also look at Trello, and we'll also look at task list, using task list project management with a tool called Asana. And again, the beauty of all this is all these tools are free to use and free for you to try.
Right, before we move on, quick question for you here. So the technology moves very quickly these days. And these tools, in a year, 2 years from today, as we are recording this, they may either no longer be here, or the functionality that we are discussing today may have been improved and changed. Does this mean that this training will become obsolete?
No, I don't think the training will be obsolete, because the concepts of collaboration using a centralized tool, regardless of what that tool may be, is still very relevant. Technology is a moving target and companies come and go. But I think what you'll find with these tools, these are definite thought leaders in the collaboration space and are providing a lot of innovation. And as these tools evolve, so will the concepts of collaboration.
Excellent. It was important for me that we discuss this because I want to make sure that our viewers here understand that, even if these tools are gone, the concepts, the ideas are still important. And of course, links to these tools will be provided during and definitely at the end of the presentation, so everybody can have a chance and go check them out.
So the first tool we're going to look at is going to help us enable going from creating a work breakdown structure to actually working. And with this, we'll look at Mindjet Connect and Mindjet Connect Action. So when you think about how we determine scope today, when you look at the PMBOK, they'll tell you that the way you develop scope is you sit down and you write a scope statement, and then from there you develop the work breakdown structure. But in actual practice, in order to get to a scope statement, in order to develop a work breakdown structure, you often have to brainstorm with your business customer and create a list of what's inside your customer's brain. What is the brain dump that contains the needs, the wants, the must-haves, the good ideas, and even the bad ideas. All those need to be evaluated as that goes into actual brainstorming what the overall scope of your project is going to be.
All right, before we look into how Mindjet Connect and the other one, this tool is doing it, a quick question for you here. How is it done today? Developing a WBS, creating this brain dump, what do most project managers, in your knowledge, use today to create these?
A lot of times these are done via a whiteboard session. Maybe you'll do some formal brainstorming techniques where you're using sticky notes or index cards, or it's just simply having a meeting and having a discussion about what it is the customer wants to achieve. And from there, you're eliciting the needs, the wants, the must-haves. You're going through that requirements analysis and trying to elicit what's the problem that the customer is having, and then what are some particular needs that need to be met with a solution. Now, one of my favorite ways of determining what the project scope is to go through a brainstorming exercise and actually to develop a mind map to help capture what all those ideas are. And you see in the image here, we're trying to build out a project management training portal. So I'm trying to figure out, well, what is it that we want to have in this portal? You think through your course catalog about needing to develop a course catalog, being able to get approvals on that course catalog. You got to think about the infrastructure. What are we going to use to actually host this website? How are we going to accept payment within this training portal? And same thing around marketing and what are the actual courses that we're going to develop? So as you have these conversations with your business customer, you'll find they're not linear. They tend to be unstructured. And brainstorming is an excellent way to kind of tie all that together.
And when you say they're not linear and unstructured, is that the yellow arrow that you're showing, that people jumping from one point to the other, constantly going back and forth?
Well, that yellow arrow is meant to indicate that there's a relationship.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, the course catalog has a need to actually get courses
Right.
put into the solution. What I've developed here is, if we were to have a conversation about what you want to achieve with this project management training portal, it wouldn't be a direct linear conversation where you want to talk about the course catalog first, and then you want to talk about your infrastructure needs, and then you want to talk about how you're going to handle payment. It tends to be a dialogue where, whenever you go to a meeting, those meetings are often, even though they're structured with an agenda, we often go off on tangents.
Right.
And by capturing your notes and then organizing them around a mind map, you're actually able to produce a final version of the conversation that's well organized. And this is what I use to help develop some of my scope statements.
Yeah, because while you are probably talking about the payment methods at the bottom right, somebody suddenly says, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a course about X?
Exactly.
And it's easy to insert. All right, got it.
So when you look at brainstorming project scope, you don't always have to use a technical solution. Again, sticky notes, index cards, all those still work out really well. Now, my preference, though, is to use a mind map and mind mapping software to help generate that project scope, because really it's a better tool for actually recording and transcribing the results of a brainstorming session. Of course, there are challenges just using a single client mind mapping software, because it's usually constrained to a single user. And they're the ones actually transcribing the notes based on what's going on. Again, another best practice is you could have a brainstorming session with the sticky notes and the index cards, and the person who is the scribe would actually create the mind map as they go forth and brainstorm that project scope. Now, actually, there is a better way if you're using our first tool, which is Mindjet Connect, which is at connect.mindjet.com. What you're able to do is you can use this tool to create a brainstorm map where you brainstorm that project scope. And all that can be captured and organized within a mind map. And the beauty of this tool is that it's a collaborative tool. So instead of having just one person actually write down and create the mind map, all of you can interact with the mind map simultaneously using your computers. And you can collaborate real time on developing different nodes and developing the different brainstorm. So we go to the next slide. So in this slide, this is actually an actual snapshot of the Mindjet Connect tool. What I've done is, I took a snapshot of the brainstorm map that I had created. But what this allows you to do is when you log in, each and every one of you that are interacting with the map can actually add different nodes, and they can take full advantage of all the mind mapping features that you find in mind mapping software. And the beauty of this is all web-based. So there's no additional software that's needed. You just fire up a web browser, access the mind map that you want to collaborate on, and you can go ahead and start brainstorming today in a collaborative fashion. So if I were to host a brainstorming session today, I would have everybody log in with their laptops, and this could be done remotely. This also could be done if we're co-located. But you think about how many projects nowadays are using distributed teams. Being able to brainstorm in a non-located fashion, it actually adds some benefit. Now we go to the next slide. The question here then is, well, what about the work breakdown structure? I mean, it's great. You can start out with a mind map that talks about what you think the scope of the project is going to be. But what I like about the Mindjet Connect tool is with one click of the button, you can instantly change the hierarchy. So now this project management training portal project now has specific deliverables with specific sub-deliverables underneath them. And from this, you can walk away from the meeting with specific tasks, and then these different sub-deliverables can be further decomposed into other work packages and different tasks.
I don't assume they're actually calling it WBS, right?
No, I think in project management speak, we know this as a work breakdown structure. Right. But to the business customer, or to even the team that you work with, they're more focused on the features and the requests and what we're actually trying to achieve. You as the project manager then go back in and try to do some of this organization and try to get these concepts aligned and get the thoughts aligned. But typically in a project management office or a formal PM methodology, they'll ask you to produce some sort of work breakdown structure. And using this tool, you can instantly create that type of a work breakdown structure. Okay, so now once you've defined your work breakdown structure, the next step is trying to identify priorities, trying to identify who are the resources that are going to be working on those specific tasks. With Mindjet Connect, you can go ahead and very easily add selected resources. You can then also add specific target dates when you think these tasks need to be completed. The purpose of this is try to develop a very high level project schedule that you can then use to manage the work. Now, if you're using, there is a paid version of Mindjet Connect, that their Mind Manager product, which will actually create a Microsoft project file for you. But what is actually interesting is with this tool, you can send it directly to Mindjet's Connect Action tool. So on the next slide here, you see with one click of the button, this will take all those tasks that you've assigned in the work breakdown structure, and they will actually become tasks that you can collaborate on as a project team. And we'll show that to you in the next slide.
Right. But let's also not forget that so far, all that we have done is we've gone from a brainstorming session to a WBS, to assigning tasks with the possibility to even send it to Microsoft Project if that's a requirement in our organization, all in the same tool, right? So this is total collaboration. And I assume this can also be shared still with the other people on the project at this point.
Correct, because everybody has an account and they're all able to interact with the map. There's no need to distribute the map. People just log in if they want to see what that map looks like. Again, using one source of data for everybody to view the information and continue to make comments and collaborate against that document. So now this is the tool Mindjet Connect Action. We've actually exported the mind map into Connect Action. And this interface, it kind of reminds me of project management meets Twitter. So if you've seen the different Twitter feeds and the way to organize your threads, but on the left-hand side, you see it has a list of all the tasks that you're going to work on. And those are all the tasks within the given project that you can add other team members to that project. And in the second column, you see it says my name, Andy, and has my image. This is where you see all the tasks that are assigned to me. And what's useful with this tool is I'm able to actually click on that task. I see I am assigned to write 3 blog articles. I have a specific target date in mind. And with this tool, I can start asking questions and drive the comments and the discussions at the task level. And I can also attach documents at the task level. So everything is organized around the specific task rather than on a file server in a disparate location. Take a look at the next slide. I can show you a little more detail on that. So, here's just a further closer snapshot of that task detail. In this case, it was completing an article on collaborating with Mindjet Connect. And you see here on the right-hand side, all of the different conversations and everything that's been tracked against that specific task. And then when I can mark that the task is complete. That's over on the progress bar, as well as what target date it was completed, and then who are the people that are following the task. What's really neat about this tool is much like Twitter, when you follow people, you can actually follow specific tasks. So I may not necessarily be the one working on the task, but I can follow it. And this way I get notifications when a new note appears or if a new deliverable is accomplished. So these are some of the unique features with Mindjet Connect Action. It really is a task management meets Twitter type interface. I've really liked the instant email integration and being able to track all the different comments against the specific tasks within the tool. What I mean by email integration is when there's an update that's made of the task, or if one of my collaborators makes a comment, I actually receive an email in my inbox. And from there, I can reply back to that email message, and my email will actually be integrated with the specific task. It is really impressive because it is just lightning quick how it adopts that email and how it loads it into the tool. What I also found helpful is having that instant task notification. So when something is completed, you're notified. So again, instead of having to wait for that next meeting to know if the task was completed or not, you get that instant notification. Now, another useful feature of the tool is Mindjet Connect Action has these unique task priority features. And this is where over time, the priority of this task will be increased. So if a due date is approaching, the priority of you working on that task raises higher and higher in your list. because you as the worker can readjust the priority of the list. And again, everybody will know that those priorities have changed. But what's really unique about Connect Action is it actually weights what tasks have a higher priority. And in this case, they're looking at several factors that come together. But as a task is approaching a due date, it's going to have a higher priority for you to work on that task unless you can indicate it's being blocked or it needs to be delayed. And that's what's really useful is now you're putting the power into the user's hand, where if you think back to the project management model, the classic command and control model where the project manager dictates what is being done. This type of a tool allows the end user to help prioritize and help everybody understand what the priorities are for that person on that given day. And so this allows you to reprioritize those tasks, and using those different views, you can get a project view or a user-based view of what tasks are going to be worked on that day.
So much for the overview of Mindjet and the two tools here, checkpoint and questions. I have 3 questions for you at this point, Andy, and I'm going to ask the same question for the next 3 checkpoints that we have, because we've looked at the tools, we've seen the features, they're nice, but we want to make sure that, the viewers understand the concepts that we're trying to get across, because like we said, the features may change in the future, but the concepts remain. So what is the primary concept that you want to make the viewer understand from the tools that we've seen?
Well, the key point you want to see in these tools is how you're using a centralized solution to collaborate and drive decision making and drive the work. All this is being done with everybody coming together to make decisions, to either define what everybody thinks is in scope for the project, or each individual person reprioritizing tasks based on their needs rather than a command and control model. As we look at all these different tools, you'll see that's the beauty of this collaboration. It's not like we're working with a lockdown project schedule that cannot adjust. And when we think about project management best practices, you want the schedule to adjust. You want it to have that natural ebb and flow based on how the team is going to work, so you have an accurate picture of what is being completed in the project. So you as the project manager can take the effective corrective action to help move that project along.
All right, and that I think leads nicely into my next question, because you opened the presentation about Mindjet Connect and Connect Action with the slide, how do you determine scope today? And we talked about the WBS and how you create it, and based on how the PMBOK guide says we have to create it. So waterfall, traditional type of approach. How about agile development approaches? Does this work in agile as well?
Absolutely. I think what you'll find as we go into both Trello and Asana and even the Mindjet Connect, all those fit very well with agile projects where you define your release plan, you define your iteration, and it's the team that's coming together to detail the specific tasks of what needs to be done in an iterative plan.
Right. And my final question here for the checkpoint is 3 slides back, we had the image of the 2 phones on the screen, and you said what you really like is the instant email integration. You instantly get an email if somebody makes an update, or you get an instant task notification when due dates change, when status changes on a task. Doesn't that lead to total information overflow? I mean, wouldn't that just simply mean I get so much information from this tool, I'm just not going to look at it anymore?
Well, you actually can control your notifications and how often you want to be notified. In this case, the tool will go ahead and let you know on a daily basis as a summary of all the tasks that are upcoming that you need to take action on. And in this particular tool, it's also designed for mobile. So actually all 3 of these tools have mobile applications that with your smartphone, you can very quickly determine what the status is of the different tasks and actually integrate and collaborate while you're in line getting lunch.
And with that, we are moving on to the next tool, Trello.
So in this tool, we're going to talk about generating project status at a glance. So if we look at the next slide, think about how much time do you spend preparing for status reports? You as the project manager or you as the employee or the knowledge worker have to provide input into those status reports. That's why I kind of thought this Dilbert comment was kind of humorous, because here's the boss coming in. When will I get your project status report? And Dilbert says, well, you're asking for a status report on the status of the status report. And, so here's the boss is asking for these status reports. And, I'm sure all of you have felt this at some point in time where people want to know what's the status of the project. And you have to go through some time to get that status, but they keep needling you about the status on the status. They can get quite frustrating, but in real world project management, that's the administrative burden, the administrative overhead that you need to handle. But I started thinking a little bit differently about, what if the status was actually self-generated? I mean, what if you had a status report that you were able to look at instantly without running a report, but just simply by accessing the tool, and with a glance of where the project is, you can immediately determine where are you on the different project status. And this is where we'll go into Trello. So Trello is located at Trello.com, and as it states, their tagline is organize anything together.
Andy, when you first sent me this presentation here and I looked at this slide here from Trello, I thought to myself, hey, you know what? This looks kind of like a Kanban board.
Oh, absolutely. The way this tool is organized, it has a very agile look to it. Because the way Trello works is you set up your processes, or you set up a board, and on these boards you have lists. So in this snapshot, you have a list of known issues, a list of ideas, a list of next up features, a list of what's in progress, and then a final list of what's been implemented. Now, incidentally, this is the actual tool that Trello uses to manage the development of Trello. So Trello,
that's funny.
Well, it's nice to see a company is actually drinking their own champagne,
right,
and is actually using the tool that they are making available to the market. And I find this very useful because with Trello, each of the tasks that you work on, if you think in terms of agile terminology, you have a user story, and that user story progresses across a series of stages as it moves from a known issue into a next up phase for being fixed, into something that's in progress, into finally something that's being implemented. So if we look at the next slide, you'll see that every task that you create is a card. So you're able to define a user story or a specific project deliverable as a card in Trello. So in this case, we're building a website, so I'm going to reserve a domain name. You can put a description against this individual task. What I often do is you can also put subtasks as checkboxes into the card. And you see on the right here, you can assign different labels. You can assign different team members. You can attach file attachments to this. And on the card, there's an activity that has some of the different threaded discussions. So we'll take a look at that in the next slide. So here, all the comments that you have on a particular task, you make them against the specific card. And this allows you to get traceability and allows you to see just the flow and the history of the discussion about that specific task. In the next slide, you'll see another handy feature. And this is where we're handling subtasks as checklist deliverables. You think about a work package or a key deliverable that you're going to create in your work breakdown structure. Well, here you could create that as a card in Trello, and then each of the individual tasks that support the production of that deliverable can appear here as a checkbox. So here's an example of how I would use project status at a glance. What I've done is I've set up 4 lists. Everything on the left here is what is it we need to do. I have a list for what we're doing, and I have a list to indicate what we've actually done. And then in here, you may have issues or risks. And these are other items that I'll call out in my project log. Because again, every project has issues, risks, and changes. But you see here, I can manage all this information all within one board. What you also see is that you see the typical traffic light status colors of green, indicating that it's on target, yellow, indicating that there's some risk, and red, indicating that there is a delay in that particular date. I'm using done, the blue color, to represent which task is actually completed, so we no longer have to focus on those specific tasks. But if you were to pull this up, you'd very quickly get a status of the project, because you can see I have one red task that is late. I have a yellow task that is approaching a late date. And then in the project log, I've got one red issue that I need to discuss with management. So instead of even having a status meeting, I can just send the URL to everybody and they can all see how the project is performing at a glance.
Now, this isn't meant I also understand what you meant when you said in the beginning, self-generated. In a few slides back, what if the status was self-generated? So if I update the tasks that I'm working on, I'm saying it's done, well, this board is going to be updated. And
absolutely.
The status is updated. Okay, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue.
Well, and think about it from an agile project perspective. As you're shifting work, and even when we were doing this on a whiteboard, I have a bunch of index cards against the whiteboard, and this is what we're working on in this iteration, and it moves over to the done column. You no longer have to worry about that particular user story. But what I like about this is it gives the end user control to self-select and identify when a date is going to change or identify that a task is going to be late. And this isn't meant to be a replacement for formal communication, but instead of having to print a report or pull up the latest PMO template and fill out the formal template, you're able to just access the application. You could do a screen print, or you could just send the users to the application, and you can call this up in your meeting as you can walk through real time, where do we stand on this project? And on the next example, I'll show you of how you can actually use Trello to manage a product backlog. So if you're, in this case, if you're adopting the Agile approach, what Trello has done is they built a whole product backlog of their existing issues that they have with the software. And so those exist as cards. Their ideas list is another example of the product backlog. And based on those prioritizations of known issues and ideas, they move those features or those user stories into the next column for what's going to be next up for the next task or the next iteration that they're going to work on. And then finally, you see in that in progress column, they're actually working on those specific tasks. So from an Agile perspective, you could name these different lists, your release or iteration plan, and then move those cards into the specific iteration that you're going to be doing the delivery in.
So much for Trello. We've come to the checkpoint questions. I have two questions for you. The first question is same as before. What is the primary concept that we're trying to get across here? Nice features that we have seen, but the primary concept is really what's important here.
Well, what we're trying to reinforce is how can you use collaboration tools to reduce your project administration? The whole point of this is how do we actually improve project delivery by freeing up the project manager's time, by freeing up the individual knowledge workers' time to actually focus on the project and getting tasks and deliverables completed. You could use any of these tools to drive this, but you want to find some way of using a collaboration solution to help you manage the work and even help communicate the overall status of where you stand on that project.
Okay. Second question, when we think back a couple of slides where you showed us the project status at a glance, nice overview, excellent visibility. I can see immediately what's going on, what's in progress, what's done, green, yellow, red. Could all this visibility be too much visibility for some organizations and some projects?
It can be based on the sensitivity of the project and based on the information that you want to put into the tool. Now, each of these boards have board level security to where you can change who has access to what board or what project. In my own business, I've used private boards to help manage workflow and how I get my tasks done and completed. Well, I don't make those publicly available. In comparison, the Trello backlog, for the actual backlog that they're using to manage their tool, that is publicly available that anybody can access and actually view. So there are proper permissions that are applied on these tools, and they're using the proper common sense and based on your communication plan of who should have access to the information. The next tool we're going to take a look at is with Asana, where we're going to make task list management easy. So if you think about your daily task list, these are not necessarily the tasks that are in your project schedule. When we build a project schedule, it's going to have a detailed work breakdown structure with specific tasks that you need to accomplish to produce that given deliverable. But those tasks are not detailed out to the exact hour. you may have additional follow-ups or additional tasks that you just have to do that aren't going to appear on a project schedule that are going to drive an end date. And these are things that you put down on sticky notes, notepads, random scraps of paper. Just it's all the stuff you need to get done today in order to help move this project along. And these aren't necessarily going to show up in a detailed project schedule.
Right. So really, we're not talking about the developer has to develop feature X, but it's more like, whoa, almost forgot to call the project sponsor. Better put that in so I don't forget to call him this afternoon.
Absolutely. I may be developing feature X, but I have to schedule 3 different meetings with 4 different people to get everybody into the same room or into the same session. And that's the reminder, and those are the things that you still have to, it's your punch list of daily activities that you need to accomplish.
Right. So it's my personal tasks, my things that I need to do, including, can't forget to go buy milk on the way home.
Absolutely. And that's actually how I use Asana is I have my list of key things I need to get done that day. And then I also have my personal task list of stuff that my wife wants me to work on over the weekend. Right. So instead of jotting it all down on paper, I put it into Asana and let that help drive what I need to work on. So let's take a look at the next slide and we can see what Asana looks like. All right, so in here, what Asana shows is a simple 2-level outline where you have all your tasks over here on the left pane. And then on the right-hand side, you actually have the task detail. So in this example, I came up with 3 major goals. I was trying to build something around goals for 2012. So if I want to improve health and I want to lose 20 pounds, I've actually detailed out the ways that I'm going to do that. I'm going to sign up for Taekwondo 3 days a week. I'm going to register with a loseit.com application. I'm going to pack my lunch 4 days a week. I can set these things up as reoccurring tasks. On personal development, perhaps I want to learn guitar. So there's a whole bunch of other subtasks that I can do to help me learn guitar by researching schools that are going to help me learn music, learning basic chords, learning 3 songs, all that culminating in me playing at a coffee house on an open mic night. So those are just some examples of how you can very easily identify your punch list of things that you want to achieve. And what I love about Asana is it gives lightning fast task entry. If you think back to how the old way of entering tasks into a web-based tool, it was very much you would enter the task, hit the submit button, and wait. But with Asana, it's literally just like using Excel or Microsoft Project with that fast response time. And what's unique about Asana is it allows you to help prioritize your tasks using a very simple nomenclature. They simply want to know, what are you working on today? What's going to be up? Is this task going to be upcoming, or is this task going to be something you're going to do later? Because the tool will automatically reprioritize those tasks based on your own personal priority. And you can assign due dates. Again, the same concept of having people follow you or follow those specific tasks, attaching files to the given task, as well as building out that task commenting. So a lot of the same features that you saw in other tools, but you see, again, it's that central-based collaboration where people are getting out of their inbox and focusing on using a collaboration tool rather than sending you an email. And finally, the other useful feature is the email reminders, where every day I will get a list of all the activities that I need to complete that are still due or outstanding, based on the work that I need to complete that day. So I find that to be really helpful too with the overall integration and reminders of the tasks that I need to complete. Now, with all of these tools, another key benefit or concept is being able to interact with the data no matter where you are. So you could be working on your computer and using any of these tools, or you could be on the road, out in the field, or simply waiting in line for your lunch, and you want to interact with any of these tools. All of these provide some type of mobility support in either the iPhone, the iPad, the Android platform. Here you see Mindjet, Asana, Trello, all those are supported on the iPhone. And on the Android platform, Asana and Mindjet also have apps that are developed for that platform. But here you see a snapshot of me and the family in our Halloween shot. But yeah, this is where I plug into each of these tools every day using the mobile phone.
And with that, we have come to our next checkpoint and the questions here. Well, in order not to seem boring, I'm going to give my first question a slight twist here. So, what is the primary takeaway that you would like our viewers to have at this point from Asana? What is the important process, the important concept that they have to remember?
Well, it's very similar to what you saw in the other tools of being able to collaborate around a common solution. And at no time here have I gone into my inbox. I haven't, I've used a tool to track all those discussions. I've used a tool to do collaboration with documents or other files and attach them to the task level. The other key concept here is the visibility, where all this is transparent to everybody who's on the specific project team. This isn't a situation where the schedule is hidden underneath the project manager's desk and you have to go to the project manager to get that visibility. I've been on other projects where they've asked, well, where's the project schedule? And we haven't seen it, but it's because the project manager has been refining it for weeks on end. With any of these tools, you can just jump right in and start using it to collaborate and build out the critical tasks that you need to do to complete your project.
All right, and with that, we have reached the end of this module here. I did have two other questions for you, namely, what size projects do you recommend Asana for? What types of projects do you recommend Asana for? But you told me before we started recording this here, no, don't ask this here, because I'm going to answer that in the next module. So, as a little preview for everybody, those are two questions that we will be reviewing in the next module. See you then.